King Herod waited a long time for the wise men to return from Bethlehem with news, but they never came. Where could they be? They should have returned by now. Finally, the king began to realize that they weren't coming back. This enraged him. What deception! His entire plan was falling apart. There must have been a special reason why the wise men didn't return. The more Herod thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Something was going on behind all of this. Of course, he wasn't being allowed to find this child. It was going to slip through his fingers. But Herod wasn't about to be made a fool of. He would carry out his plan no matter the cost. Since he didn't know which child it was, he would have all the children of that age in Bethlehem destroyed. How old could the child be now? He wondered. At most, 2 years, his rough calculations showed. And so, he issued a terrible decree. All boys 2 years old and under were to be killed. And so, it happened. The wicked king's horrifying order was carried out. What unspeakable tragedy. Bethlehem was filled with cries and wails. Desperate mothers fought against Herod's cruel soldiers to save their precious children. But the men were stronger than the mothers, and all the little boys of that age were killed. Herod's desire was fulfilled. His plan had succeeded, or so he thought. But it was not so. The child he sought was still alive. Jesus was safely in Egypt with Joseph and Mary. God had taken care of them. For when the wise men had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said,
"Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, for Herod will stop at nothing to kill him."
So Joseph got up in the middle of the night, woke Mary, and fled with her and the child to Egypt. How fortunate that they had received such wealth from the wise men. Now Joseph could buy everything they needed, and they could live safely in Egypt. How wonderfully the Lord had cared for his child. But couldn't God have saved the other children too? Yes, of course, he could have, but he chose not to. The people of Bethlehem needed to learn something. The Savior had indeed been born among them, and indeed he had lived in their town, but that didn't mean they were any better than the other Israelites. They were just as sinful and deserving of God's judgment. If God had dealt with them according to what they deserved, they all would have perished. Now, God had allowed them to experience a portion of evil so they might understand their deep need for a Savior. Through this great sorrow, they were to realize how terrible sin is and how dreadful it would be if God came to judge them for their sins. Through this pain, he wanted them to long for the one who would bear God's judgment in their place. Oh, if only the people of Bethlehem could understand this. They would indeed cry, but they would also find comfort.